Heather Jerrehian, how are you?
Oh my gosh, Jason, I'm doing amazing. How about you?
I'm good. It's so great to have you here. Where am I
It-
finding you today? Where are we recording?
So I am in Menlo Park, California. So I'm in the Silicon Valley. Interestingly, where I was born and raised.
I do think that's interesting. We talked in the green room, we talked about you
Yes.
being born and raised there, and there's not a lot of people that were born and raised there, right?
No, I'm a complete anomaly because there's a lot of people who have transplanted here, but no, I literally have lived here my entire life. Although I did go to school in LA, I did spend some time there, did go to the East Coast for just a brief stint, but I feel like a homing pigeon because I literally left and came back to like exactly kind of where I grew up, which is
Yeah.
amazing because I've seen the world's largest companies be birthed in front of my eyes,
I
which is
love
a
that
pretty
story.
amazing thing to see.
Tell
Yeah.
me about Jerrehian.
So Jerrahian is my father's name. So it was my birth name, and my dad's family is Armenian. So I am half Armenian. And then interestingly, on my mom's side, I'm English, Irish, and Norwegian. So that's why people sometimes don't get like, well, I can see Armenian in your eyes, but the rest of it I don't see. And
So
and
you
that's
really don't believe in silos. You kind of believe in blending it all together,
exactly,
right?
exactly. Yes,
That's awesome.
exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I really,
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And I've been so excited for this conversation. I would love maybe to get started to
Yes.
just have people learn a little about you, your
Yeah,
background. You and I have crossed paths in multiple places. We
we
talked about
have.
a Gartner conference and things like that. But I'd love for people to learn a little about your background because we have a lot of people, whether they be students
Yes.
or whether they be my mom, who she'll laugh at this, that don't really understand how people get into this weird space of future of work, now of work,
Totally.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd love to hear a little about your background.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I did not take a traditional path to get where I am. Even though I'm deeply steeped today in AI and tech, I didn't start my career there. I actually started in retail and the fashion industry. So I always share with people that I didn't take a traditional path. In fact, when recruiters would reach out to me, and I'd always have to explain the beginning. And I had to come up with this analogy that I'm a hexagon. I've worked across many roles, many industries. And like, let's just get clear from the beginning. If you're looking for a peg that fits in the round hole, I am not your person. But if you need somebody with these skills and this experience, I'm your person. And what I found is that most hiring managers only wanted someone cookie cutter, right? They wanted somebody that matched the job description, a linear career project, and really, I always like question that because I'm like, wow, you're missing the opportunity to have someone with the right skills, but different experience that brings like innovative ideas. And so to this day, I mean, I really see that as the reason that I really get people. Like, I really know how to see the whole person, not just their current title. And it's really the reason for the last decade I've focused on enterprise HR technology
Yep.
and specifically using AI machine learning to build skills and workforce intelligence. Because I get that that can unlock talent, skills, expertise that's not visible. And so, for me, there's nothing more powerful than enabling people to feel seen, heard, and valued. I have in my career seen people who are incredibly loyal and dedicated, so trustworthy. But when you take that out, this is where employees become disengaged or like worse. Like what we're really seeing now is like this loss of a sense of psychological safety. And then you're spending more time in your head, right? It's taking up all this headspace of being in fear and worrying about what's happening. So for me, there's so much about myself, my life experience, my origin story that is wrapped into what I am building now. So the ethos of H22 and why I'm building a company that's focused on human AI collaboration and making a real stand for 22nd century leadership and giving back. So I have a
So,
for-profit company that I say is tech for good. And so I'm really focused on Gen Z and figuring out how do we help them enter the workforce successfully. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about who I am.
so I love that. And, you've been a CEO,
Yes.
founder,
Yes.
big company executive.
Yeah.
Here you are, we were in the green room talking about interns.
Yes.
I think you have one of the most important jobs in the world today in dealing with Gen Z and the
Yes.
22nd century. What would be one thing that would surprise people about why this is so important to you? I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, where I
Yeah.
told you I teach, like I'm teaching
Yes.
tonight, but like why this, why now in the middle of an AI arms race?
Yeah. Well, such a great question. And I think what would surprise people, I don't have children. But I have now adopted 2 billion Gen Zers as my children. Like, I have this personal calling. I feel this huge sense of responsibility to help this next generation because I've been seeing this coming. So, for 4 years, I've really been looking at and researching the impacts of AI and work and studying tasks and skills and understanding like what work gets augmented, what gets totally automated, and how does that shift what we do day to day? And so it's really understanding that, yes, mundane, repetitive tasks can be allocated to AI. But I'm seeing the challenge that if AI does entry level work, what does that mean for new entrants? So, probably similar to you, because I think you're a bit of a futurist, I have this blessing and curse of seeing things much earlier than others. And so I've been watching this tsunami coming with these major fractures across the private sector. So it's like started as sort of these quiet layoffs. Now it's more public, right? Because a lot of these companies like AI is helping us. We're killing it. We're doing great, but we don't need all these people. The public sector has been shaky. And like last year, we laid off 300,000 people in the public sector. And then academia is now starting to see fractures of enrollment starting to go down, students starting to leave. So, really, like this personal calling and this like pull towards what I'm doing is because when you start to connect the dots, our national average of unemployment is 4.4%. But when I learned that Gen Z unemployment is over 10%, like that's staggering.
So,
And then
yeah.
you compound this with this underemployment, which this is the thing that like is really unbelievable because this is not the part that's even in that 10% is the underemployment. And that is now like as high as like over 40%. And so that means that we've got lots of dog walkers, bartenders, baristas who aren't showing up in that unemployment number, but basically are doing work that does not require a college degree. And
Yep.
so, like, this has huge impacts on Gen Zers' long term earning potential. And that creates a drag, right, on our global society.
So I love, and I'm on the same page with you. I love
Yes.
how you call what's happening to Gen Z a looming crisis,
Yes.
even though I probably wouldn't call it looming.
No, no.
I call it a crisis, not
Yes.
a blip. And,
Yes.
people have called, I don't like to call myself that, but people have called me futurist also. And I think that what I try to do is I try to, and sorry for the Minnesota hockey term, but skate to where the puck is going, not to where it is today. So when we think about that, like, what was that moment? I talk a lot about oh shit moments that I got from a colleague of mine, Steve Farber, way back in the day. Like, what was the oh shit moment that said, wow, if I don't or we don't do something, we're going to lose a whole generation of talent? Because I'm on the same page with you. I
Yeah.
don't remember my oh shit moment. My oh shit moment might have been the first time I used ChatGPT,
Yeah.
but it took longer than that to actually develop my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, such a great question. And I think the oh shit moment has been it kind of like it's been that slow roll of really like I'm like starting to see connecting dots. It's the tsunami I'm talking about, which is like, I'm like, is anybody awake here? Like, we're all kind of like humming along, right? There's AI, and I think for me, it's the fact that I get that people are not seeing the repercussions of decisions being made today, right? Everyone is so short term focused, right? And that's why, like, I named my company H22 AI. So it's what I talked about earlier. I want human AI collaboration for the 22nd century. And that's really was my oh shit moment when I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone is incentivized for immediate revenue. shareholder returns. But like, what happened to stakeholders? What happened to caring about employees, right? And not only employees, but what happened to caring about the fact that, like, we have a whole generation that's depressed. These poor kids had to get through COVID. They mustered the energy to get themselves into college. And being here, living in the Silicon Valley, like, I know a lot of young people who are computer science majors. And I started talking to some of them, and they're like scared. I mean, when have you ever heard a student who's in a top university scared about their future while
Yeah.
they're in school? They were told their entire lives, go into tech, be a software engineer, you'll come out, you'll get a six-figure job, and you'll be set for life. There couldn't be anything further from the truth. So it wasn't maybe one oh shit moment. It's like this thing I've been seeing for a long time with all the research I've done, and then connecting the dots of like I said, public sector, private sector, academia, and just kind of hearing these things. And then it's talking to the individual students and being like, wow, if our future is depressed, what does that mean for us as a global society? And
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, we can't have this. So that's where, like I said, I've adopted these 2 billion Gen Zers. I'm like, as the saying goes, if not me, then who? And I'm somebody
Yeah.
who, when I see a problem, I can't help myself. I want to fix it. And to be honest, I wanted to start another company like I wanted to poke myself in the eye with a fork. Like, this is not easy, but I'm doing it very differently. And I'm doing it with Gen Z. So, built by Gen Z for Gen Z. And I'm doing it with a community. I am really partnering with, nonprofit organizations that are focused on future of work, youth empowerment, intergenerational collaboration, organizations that do research. So, to me, I'm building the technology, but we need this whole ecosystem of people thinking about this and making this like their everyday concern. And so that's really how I'm doing it differently. And I'm been amazed at the people who've shown up to say, "Hey, how can I help?" I mean, that
Yeah,
to
no,
me
no, I
is
completely
more
agree, and I
heartwarming.
mean, after our call last week, I
Yeah.
wrote something on Substack called "The Death of Safe Choices,"
Oh, I love
which
that.
got a lot of publicity, but
Yes.
and it's interesting because it got publicity at the high school level, the
Yes.
college level, the
Yeah.
Fortune 500 CEO level, so it
Yeah.
was and excuse me, and at the senior level, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. So, like, if you put all those people in a room
Yeah.
really quickly and you said, "Hey, what is the uncomfortable truth about Gen Z that they need to understand?" What would it
Yeah.
Because I think that, like, we have a very short window to fix this,
Oh
or
gosh,
we
yeah.
lose an entire generation of talent.
And I couldn't agree with you more, which is why, like, I made the decision to start this company was because I'm like, no one is seeing this. No one is thinking about, again, they're all short term right in front of them. And incentives are set up
Incentives
to
aren't
only care
aligned. Right,
about
right,
what's
yes.
right in front of you. And so, I mean, I think what I would be saying, or the uncomfortable truth is, we are forgetting about employees. We're forgetting about Gen Z, and we are unintentionally breaking the talent pipeline that actually built our careers, right? And by automating entry level work without redesigning workflows and pathways and quietly reducing early, career hiring, we're really eliminating that training ground that produces our future leaders. So I think that's really the uncomfortable truth, but the uncomfortable truth isn't convenient for right the short term incentive of what we need to do. And that's what I'm trying to unwind and figure out. Like, how do we shift that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Godspeed to
Yeah.
you on that because it's huge and it's so important.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love that you've done, have you heard of Sahil Bloom?
So yes, but no. I'm trying to
So
pinpoint like
so
how.
Sahil
Yeah.
Bloom wrote a great book called The 5 Types of Wealth.
Uh,
And what I loved about it was a framework around
mm,
wealth, and wealth wasn't about money. It was about
yeah.
other things. And when I first saw your four-dimensional workforce, I
Yes.
kind of started to think about the same thing. So, could you talk about that four-dimensional workforce model and why it's so important for leaders today?
Yeah. So the 4 dimensions is about understanding your overall organization. And so the first dimension, every company is at, right? It's knowing the names and titles of people who are in your company. The second dimension is when you start to actually understand the people in your organization and the skills they have. And not just the skills, but like seeing the whole person, right? We all come with this rich history. And so it's really being able to understand okay, so it's not just your current work, but what did you do before? Or maybe you even have, right, a hobby. I always like to use the example of a video editor because I know people who are video editors but they're in finance. But like that's interesting to know as an organization that somebody has this other skill. So the third dimension is when you start taking the first and second dimension and then you start rethinking your corporate strategy, right? Because that can't stay static, particularly now with how fast things are moving. So these are all the dynamic dimensions. And then the fourth one is time and the impacts of AI. So this goes to the research that I've done. So when you bring those four dimensions together, right? This is when you can really start to unlock and figure out how do you shape shift into the future company, future proofing your company and creating a future proofed workforce. So this is where it becomes really important. And so like instead of thinking about like cutting 20% across the board or cutting out people of a particular department, like you're hearing a lot of customer success where you're letting right institutional knowledge walk out the door and really important skills like re-looking at your workforce and thinking about like what are those skills and how do you upskill reskill and then even redeploy talent. And I'll give you an example because I think it's important because I say all that and then people are like I'm still not getting what's the four dimensions. So for example, when I was at ServiceNow, we looked at our ecosystem. And what we were trying to understand is like what roles were decreasing in demand and where do we have a lot of demand. And so interestingly, we realized that a non-tech account management specialist was decreasing in demand. But when we looked at that particular role and matched it up to other roles, it was an interesting in the 85th percentile match to a technical project manager, which was
Wow.
not only in demand, but we had a shortage. And so when we put them side by side, 29% of the skills were like an exact match. 51% were a small gap and human skills that could be learned on the job. And then there was 19% or three skills, which was the exact blueprint of how you take this non-tech person and you upskill them and redeploy them as this technical project manager. So, like, imagine that at scale and the unlock for an organization when you start to understand that. So, that's what I mean about like the four dimensional workforce and really being able, again, because it's all about shape shifting right now. Things are moving so fast, but that's the kind of visibility and being able to get that unlock that can really help an organization to be really successful.
I love that. That is a great, great framework, and we'll put a link to your site in the show notes so that people can see that. And it gets me into this next point that I want to get to. So I was with a group of CHROs yesterday in Atlanta, and one of the things, and I talked about it from the standpoint of a professor, where I basically said I have students that can't find entry level jobs, and they kind of looked shocked at first. And then
Yeah.
the next thing I said is, how many of you have actually restructured your entry level jobs to match the world today? And I got 0. And then the next question was, "Well, why should we do that?" And I said, "Well, because all of the work that you've hired them to do in the past,
Yeah.
AI is doing now." And they're like, "Well,
Yeah.
that was grunt work." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what AI is good at, is grunt." I don't like the
Mhm.
term grunt
Yes,
work,
yes,
but
yes.
grunt work. So I was thinking about it this morning, Heather, and I got up
Yeah,
before I went to the gym here in South
you're
Carolina,
so good.
and I started like 10 agents doing work for me
Yeah,
while I was at the gym. And when I
mhm,
came back, the agents were done. And I'd
yeah,
say 7 of them did a good job, 3 of
yeah,
them didn't. But and by the way, I have a team in India
mm,
that I used to give that work to
right,
that I didn't,
right.
because it was easier for me to give the
Yes,
work to my AI agent than it was to give it to India. So I do believe, and as much as people
Mhm.
don't want to say it, AI is eating entry level work.
Yes.
My concern, and I think this matches you, is that if
Yeah.
companies keep automating that first rung without
Yes.
redesign, like, where does that lead us? Because I think it's doomy. Sorry for that word, but I don't
No.
think it's a very positive place because I'm
Yeah.
gonna grow up in 5 years from now. Well, actually, I'm probably never gonna grow up, but
Yeah.
5 years from
Neither am
now,
I.
yeah, 5 years from now, I'll look in the mirror and say, "Wow, I have a talent gap," and
Yeah.
I'll say, "Duh, of course I have a talent gap because I stopped hiring entry-level jobs." Am I right with that? Once again, back to the futurist, the
Yeah.
problem with being labeled a futurist or thinking you're a
Yeah.
futurist is you never know whether you're right or wrong. Uh,
Right. Although, I mean, I will say, like, I didn't like being called that earlier in my career because I didn't have enough of a look back to know if
oh,
I
now
was
you
right or
think
wrong.
you're the
But
weather
now I
person.
have enough of a look back where I'm like, "Man, I, like, really knew what was happening." So it gives me more confidence
Well, how
today
accurate
to
are you,
say,
Heather, in your prediction?
"Well, I mean, I don't know. Let's just put it this way. I don't wanna be accurate on this one, right? Like, this one, this is not one that we want to be accurate on
So this isn't like
because
the groundhog in Pennsylvania
yeah.
where, if the groundhog like, I was reading the stat that the groundhog has been right 43% of the time. I'm like, "Why is anyone listening to this dumb groundhog?" Because that's less than half the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Correct. But yeah, I agree with you on this one. I don't
yeah,
wanna be right, but I think you're right. So what has to happen?
yeah. Well, a lot has to happen, and I think the first thing is, you said it right. I mean, I think we need to redesign early career roles, right? We need to be thinking about them as, like, human AI apprenticeship models, like, not just eliminating them, and that takes work, right? And a lot of us don't have the time right now. I mean, the pace of change right now is relentless. Like, it is unlike anything I've ever
Yeah.
seen, and
Yeah.
I'm hearing other people say the same, and I think you've said that.
Yeah.
But if we don't make a change, and you're right, these headlines, I mean, these poor kids feel, and I shouldn't say kids, these young people feel depressed, demoralized, right? And they feel like no one has their back right now because their parents can't figure out how to help them think this
Yeah.
through. Their guidance counselors don't quite know what to say. And we as a general society are kind of like, yeah, it is a little scary right now. And so for me, I'm looking at this thinking, like, if we don't do something, unemployment for Gen Z could be over 25%. And I'm not the only one that's seeing that. There are others that are saying like over
And
25%.
I would bet, if someone asked me to, like, put money right now, I don't have any
Yeah.
money, but if someone asked me to put money on this right now, I would say you're right.
Yes. But let me scare you even more if we don't do something. And the reason it's not about scaring people, but it's about getting into action, right? That we care enough to take action today. And us as individuals, it's like, again, like me starting this company, I am doing it because I want to build an entire community around me who also cares about the 2 billion Gen Zers. It's the reason I launched my company at Davos because it's where global leaders convene to talk about the most pressing issues in our globe and of our time. And so it's not just the unemployment. What scares me more is that I predict that we will probably have 60 to 70% underemployment if we don't intervene. And I can't think of a worse way to have our future, right, not living to their potential. And, the arc of their life and their career and their earnings potential just gets crushed. So I think this is why I keep saying it's like an existential crisis today that, like you said earlier, we have to address it today. There's not a huge window to get this figured out before we really have made some decisions that were short term, helped us for like the next 2, 3 years, but we weren't thinking about Gen Z, alpha, and beta behind them. And so that's why, again, this idea of 22nd century leadership is so important. And I'm holding this flag, like, who is behind me on 22nd century leadership?
Yeah.
People are like, that's a long way off, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's not a long way off. This is our children, my nieces, nephews, right? It's people's grandchildren. Like, it is not that far off, and we've got to think about that today. So,
So yeah, so Heather, I'm not a political person, and I don't
yeah,
really care what people think of me
yeah,
about that statement, but I did watch some pieces of the State of the Union last
yeah,
night, which we're recording the day after the State of the Union,
yeah,
and I personally think, like, futurist what's a futurist? Once again, I'm gonna be like Groundhog, probably 43% right, but
yeah,
I think that this is gonna be the number one issue in the 2028 presidential election.
yeah,
I truly do. And I was very, very frustrated last night that it got very little mention.
yeah,
When you think about other parts of the world that have a 2030 strategy tied to this,
yeah,
we have very little mention. So, all that being said, you know, when I was thinking about you talking about redesigning entry level
yeah,
careers, like I get into the question of whose job is this? And
yeah,
you, with what you're doing with H22, have a really cool like spot, like right at the intersection of where I'll call it psychometric, like a
yeah,
little bit of an assessment
yeah,
combined with skills,
yeah,
combined with real life market data come
yeah,
together.
yes,
So, with what you're trying to do,
yeah.
which you've been very successful before, so know you'll be successful again, which to me, success almost is like one person. I know you want to make more of an impact than that, but for me, every day I teach, if I can impact one person, I feel like it's a success.
Oh,
But
100%.
what does a student's life look like? Like, if you don't have this kind of guidance? I mean, I'm
Yeah,
watching it every day, but I'd
yeah,
love your thoughts on that. And then what is the opportunity cost in your mind of not doing
yeah.
anything?
Right. Oh gosh, so you
Sorry,
there was
that
a
was a lot.
lot there that you said, but you are on the front lines and you are living it. And so I've talked to hundreds of students. So, like, you are living it day to day with them. And thank you for being there and helping to bring these students along. We
Well,
need
and
more.
it's kind of funny, Heather, because people always ask why I do it. I'm only doing it because of that. Like
Yeah.
people are like, "Are you doing it for money?" I'm like, "Believe me, if anyone's ever worked in education, you're not doing it for money.
Right, right,
You're doing it
right.
for the love, and you're trying to do it for the love of humanity to make
Yeah.
people give one person an
Oh,
opportunity that they might
100%.
not have had before."
So I'm going to give you an example that is that one person. Okay, this is like super important. So when I decided I was building H22, I got very inspired from somebody I met who really kind of hit me square between the eyes, which is the before meeting him, I would have built this technology and then taken it Gen Zers and gotten their feedback. But what I learned from him, and he's a Gen Zer, he's my Gen Z mentor. He's actually working with H22 in some great ways. But what I got from him was we need I need to have Gen Zers at the table with me from very early stage, right? A seat at the table, not a seat at the side or the back. It's like at the table with a voice along with everybody else. So this is that intergenerational collaboration. And so interestingly, I met a young woman, CS major at Stanford, bright young woman who last summer could not find an internship for her life. Okay, has every advantage in the world and could not find an internship. She couldn't even give herself away for free. That is heart wrenching. But I met her and I brought her in as my intern to be Gen Z sitting by my side and have put her through this whole process. So really, and me and a team working on the psychometrics, right? So we've got two proprietary models. We've got a psychometrics model, and then we have, right, skills and workforce intelligence. And then we're bridging that. So really, H22 is about building the blueprint of you across life, learning, career. So it's these three paths and 22 dimensions. But in having her there with me and taking her from this young woman who felt very discouraged, right? Almost lied to. Like, she was told her entire life, as I said earlier, go into tech. You'll be set for life. And she's like, I can't even get an internship. She went through and really got to understand who she was personally. So this is really that life path and really started to understand, like, what are her strengths? what are her motivations? What are her passions? Like, started unlocking, like, all of these things. What are things that could be challenges for her? But it's that self-awareness. And particularly, like, when we think about strengths, like, I remember her saying to me, like, "I'm not sure I have all these strengths." And then it was like, "Well, pay attention day to day as you're doing things." And all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, yeah, I actually have that." So then all of a sudden you take somebody who has no confidence, totally discouraged, demoralized, who's like, "Huh, I've got some strengths. I've got now some confidence. I actually bring some value to this world." And so helping her with that and then helping her to understand, okay, how does that translate to what you're learning in school? And how does that translate then dynamically to all the possible things that you can do when you come out of school? Right. And so having this dynamic system that could help her understand who she is, what she's learning, and then what could all these different paths be in the future. And if at any point she wanted to change her mind, not a problem, but have a tool that helps you think through that. I now have a young woman who is, I mean, she is contributing beyond belief in the company. She is so well respected with our senior leaders. You know, she's at the table, she's there with me. And this is my example of one. If I can take her one times 10 times 100 times 10,000 times a million, oh my God, it would be amazing. And I have brought other young people into the company and seen the same thing. So I'm creating this technology, and this is why I need so many people to come and join me on this journey because it's possible to make a change for these students. It takes technology, it takes, people on the ground, it takes educators, it takes brave people in the public sector to be willing to go, you know what? This AI arms race, we know we need to be in it, and we can still do the right thing. And we can start to rethink workflows and pathways and how we bring in that next generation. And the opportunity cost of not doing this isn't just like a generation that's sidelined or under or unemployed. It literally is a $1 trillion drag on our global GDP. So, like, this is existential and this hits everybody, every country. It's not just the US. And so that's why I think you're right. I think the 2028 election, we will need to be talking about this because our government is not set up to help, a whole generation of young people to be dependent on them, right?
Yep.
Because if they can't be gainfully employed and finding a path and a way forward, I mean, think about the ripple effect of all that. So we have to address this. And I think that's where, as people start to wake up to this, that opportunity cost, again, is becoming so important, and it's just as important as the other existential things that we're working on. It's actually all
No,
interrelated.
it is, and, as much as I listened about
Yeah.
Social Security and Medicare,
Yes.
I would have loved to have heard the other side, which is what are we doing for that other group, which is Gen Z, which I don't think people get
They
yet.
don't. They really don't. I mean, I think that's why I'm trying, and I'm so grateful to be here talking to you about this because the more people I can talk to about this, the more that we can have more people out there bringing this to people's attention because they aren't talking about it because we're so, again, when you're having to move as fast as we are, it's so hard to slow down and do a little deep thinking and to think about, am I doing the right things today that won't have bad repercussions for the future? Right. I mean, I find myself like moving so fast now that I literally have to plan time, right? To be like, wait a minute. Okay. I want to build this company as fast as I can, but there are points when I need to slow down, stop for a moment, check myself, and be like, okay, what are the core values of the company? What's our mission? What's our vision? And are we living to that? Because if you don't, you can start to veer off course. And now with the pace of change, you can get way off course really fast. And so that's why it's really important that we start bringing this to people's attention. And I don't think no one is doing this maliciously, right? Like this
Right, right,
isn't
right, right.
it's all, unintentional consequences, but I mean, every person I've talked to goes, "Oh my god, you're right. My neighbor's kids graduated and don't have jobs," or oh my God, my grandkids are having difficulty, getting internships. Like everybody knows someone
Yep.
that's literally under or unemployed that is a Gen Zer. Everyone. Like, so you start to add those up and it's like, yeah, this is a big deal.
So with what you're hearing from Gen Z,
Mhm.
and they're telling you bluntly,
Yeah.
are employers and universities helping me? Are employers and universities equipping me?
Yeah.
If you had to talk to a CHRO, or like I'm going to in a few hours here, go meet with the dean of the business school,
Yeah.
like what's one thing you would say to them, like that they should be changing? Would it be to understand Gen Z better? Would it be to understand the issue better? Would it be better to connect the the educational institutions to where people go to work after that? Like, what would you have them change?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, it's like let's put ourselves back to how we felt when we were in college. Like I felt like I had all the opportunity in the world in front of me, right? Like I had companies who were telling me they were going to invest in me, right? There was a long career path in front of me. Like there was so much opportunity. And if we think about that compared to what these poor Gen Zers are getting, like they were told, get a degree, you'll have job stability. And they feel like they've been lied to because that's not what's actually happening. And so I think this is where, like, explaining to leaders like a CHRO, I mean, this is really looking at shifting, you know, from going to like resume based screening to looking at more like skills based hiring,
Yep.
right? And seeing right like more, proof of capabilities, right? And for universities to really be thinking about like adding AI fluency into every curriculum, right? Not as just an elective, but like how do you as a university modernize yourself? And how do you think about that human AI collaboration? And
Yep.
so, like, I've been talking to universities, and, we think about the traditional career services, right? Which is amazing, right? One to one coaching, programming, all of that.
I don't think
That's
Heather,
great.
I'm gonna interrupt you.
Yeah.
I don't think they're amazing.
Well, okay, let
I
me put
think
it
they're
this way. Okay.
dated, I think they're old, and I, for the most part, think they're not relevant.
So let me get to the other half of why I think it's amazing.
I'm sorry to
Because the
interrupt you. That
university
was
no, no,
you
no, no,
touched it.
you're be
You poked a
no, no, no,
bear.
I poked the bear. No, but let me tell you why it's amazing with the university I'm talking to. So, let me reframe. It's amazing because there is a leader that knows the importance of the human and what they're responsible for, but the importance of pairing it with AI. So
Love
they're
that.
looking at how do we use H22 alongside the human pieces that they bring to students. And it's a beautiful relationship, this technology with the career services. So if that blueprint becomes things that other universities do to modernize themselves, to show that they're future forward thinking, that they care about their students today and helping them to think about how do they learn, grow, and thrive long after they've graduated. So they've got to go back and rethink that whole process. And so again, that's like how do you bring AI into, right? These older systems of how we've traditionally educated students.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I sorry to get so,
No, no,
sorry to
no.
get so
You're just
I
as passionate as I
no,
am. And
I still work with people who, like, I just went to the career center and they said they're offering, professional headshots and resume guidance. I'm like, and I know that's important. I'm not saying it's not important, but there's a lot more important to understand than that.
yes, exactly. Yes. There is a lot more to be thinking about.
So, I love this conversation. Thank you, and thank you for everything you're doing in
Yeah.
the space. I wanna end with kind of a challenge,
Okay.
right? So, because I have students that listen to this podcast, I have business executives that listen to the
Yeah.
podcast. If you're a 20-year-old,
Yeah.
I could take my son, Alex, 18,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's one uncomfortable but really urgent move you would recommend that they start to make?
So I think first and foremost, so I have this concept I call transferable trust. And what's really important about transferable trust, like, Jason, if you know someone and you introduce me to them, the trust I have in you transfers to that person even though I've never met them, but I'm meeting them through you. The reason I'm sharing that is so powerful, and if I think about everybody I've brought into H22, it's people I've brought in through my network because I
Wow.
have trust with people, and that trust is transferred to people who have then recommended people. And so what I wanna say is, don't wait to be chosen. Network, network, network. The old saying is like 80% of jobs are found through your network. And like the thing they need to do is like not only network, but publish your thinking. Like write, show what you're building, show your code, right?
Proof
Make
of
your
work.
work
Proof of
and your
work.
voice visible. And I think you tell your students that
Yep.
because employers and AI agents are going to be looking for proof of
Yep.
your capabilities, not your GPA. And so your digital footprint is now a part of your resume. So I think that's the thing that I just can't underscore enough. And if I go back, right, to my first intern found in my network,
Yep.
right?
Now let's switch roles and play the business leader.
Yeah.
So we have already talked a little about the business leader and thinking about
Yeah.
developing early career roles and redesigning them.
Yeah.
But, if I'll call it an irreversible decision that they have to make. Otherwise, they're not going to survive. And I think a lot of them aren't going to survive because they're not going to listen to you. But
Right.
I'd love your thoughts on what you think of business
Well,
leader.
tell me what you think, but they're not gonna listen to you, and I know that's
Well, no,
true.
they're not going to. They're not. Excuse
Uh,
me. Let me rephrase. They're going to listen to you, but it's too hard to act on what you're
it
saying.
is, and I've lived this, right? I have lived and I've really seen up close and personal, as have you, what it's like. I have built the AI technology, I've led data science teams in building this, right? I've done it in a very large public company. And I had the privilege of not only having my company acquired and being able to bring that technology to a very big platform, but I also got to lead the go to market for a new product that we brought to market. So I got to work with our customers, our enterprise customers, and really helping them think through how do I bring in this type of technology? How do I implement it? How do I get the adoption, right? And it's excruciatingly hard, right? And so I've seen that up close and personal, which is why I'm not building H22 for the enterprise to start. And I'm saying to start because I think
Yep.
there's a way that it ends up in the enterprise, but I am starting with the individual. And so what I would say is that I think you called it irreversible
Yeah,
decision that
irreversible decision.
Okay, so that is all about the decision that you will redesign work, not just automate it, but doing it from the ground up. And what that means is you can't outsource this to a
Yep.
consulting firm or HR. It literally has to be done by the very people who are currently doing that work.
Love that.
And on top of it, you need to bring in those with a new, fresh perspective. So when we think about that early in career, the digital natives, right? Who, as I like to say, this 360 mentorship, they can help those of us who are more mature on how do we think about using AI in day-to-day workflows in a way that we may not know. It's not natural to us. It's a
Yep.
new muscle, a new habit. And then how do we, right? Help bring them along on ways of working and giving them some of that institutional knowledge. And so that is just absolutely to me the most important part, and that they stop thinking of like AI as like a cost lever, right? But instead, think about how do they, you know, redesign the workforce, because otherwise like it's going to have massive impacts. And when we think about that four-dimensional workforce, right?
Yep.
Like, if you don't have all 4 dimensions, you can't shape shift to the future. You might have part of it, but if you don't have that whole thing, it's gonna be very hard to survive, things that we can't even imagine or see today.
I like
And
that
and the
statement.
thing I
Yeah.
will leave it on is, the thing that really resonates for me is when you hear people who are on the bleeding edge of this technology say, "This is happening much faster than we expected." I mean, it's like, holy like,
Yeah.
moly, like, I feel like it's discussed, but, like, you're the one that, like,
Holy
is, like,
moly.
because
That's a
yeah.
Midwest thing, Heather.
See, I'm
That's not a
picking up
Bay
the
Area thing.
Midwestern
Yeah.
in you. But, that's where it's like that's where your eyes start to get really opened of like, "Oh my gosh," very few people are paving, like, we are all kind of, like, paving the road together. It's not
Yeah.
like I mean, there's very few people that are, like, in front. It's not like we have a whole bunch of people we're following. It's a small group and we're all trying to keep up. But if they're saying that, like, wow, there's so much we just don't know yet. But that ability to be agile and to really shapeshift and to really be able to adjust as things change is going to be critically important in the future.
So the dream of H22, really
Yeah.
quickly. I wanna make sure people can direct back to you. They can follow
Yeah.
you on LinkedIn, they can see all your pictures from Davos, they saw the stuff you speak about,
Yeah.
but where is the where is this platform today or product or solution,
Yeah.
and what's the best way for people to engage?
Yeah. No, thank you for asking. So it's an AI native platform for life and career navigation. We're early in our evolution. I am working with some forward thinking early universities where we're starting to bring this in as the AI component with the human component, bringing that together. And we're developing some really cool metrics on that. And we also have individuals who are using this. So we've got, we've got a wait list that's growing rapidly. And so, what I would say if people want to engage with H22, come to H22.ai, our website, join the wait list, keep up to date on what we're doing. And we are literally opening this up as we speak to people, but it's all on the wait list because we're early and we're wanting to make sure that we build something that is a sovereign vault. We really care about trust and transparency and making sure that we earn the trust of Gen Zers and that they use this and they get the benefits of it, but they also know that we care about them and that we're building it right. So we're doing it in, whether it's working directly with the individuals and getting their feedback, we're working with universities. And then, like I said, I'm partnering with some nonprofits, partnering with some researchers. And so I am anybody who has a passion for this topic and wants to figure out how they can plug in and help. I am literally excited to talk to them.
That is awesome. So Heather, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
I
you.
so appreciate it. It's life's work. I said Godspeed, and I was like that was a little bit of a joke, but at the same time, it is life's work that you're doing, and I truly think it's a moment in time crisis type thing. And I'm not trying to overhype
Yeah.
what this is, but watching it on the front lines and watching students I get to work with every single
Yeah.
day, they are struggling, and it's our responsibility, I believe, wherever we are in our career paths, to
Yes.
figure out how to help them.
Absolutely. And thank you for what you're doing because you are on the front lines. And like we said, even if we're helping 1, 10, 100, I mean, like this
Yeah.
podcast magnifies. Like you are really trying to bring this message forward. So I really thank you for, you know, being a part of figuring out this 22nd century
Yes,
leadership.
I'm excited. I'm excited to
Yeah.
partner with you going forward. Heather, thank you
Yes.
so much. Great to have
Great.
you on.
Thanks,
Look
Jason.
forward to talking soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.